On New Year's Eve, you may have been like the 85% of Americans that were staring at the clock waiting for midnight to come to usher in 2018. Hello everybody, I'm Mark Thomas and you found Uniquely Bristol. Our show highlights the hidden gems and small town values of Bristol, Connecticut. It's produced by the Bristol Development Authority, the BDA, and shown on Nutmeg TV every month. What do you think this looks like to you? These are actually handcrafted parts made here in Bristol of early clocks. We're at the American Clock and Watch Museum located here in Bristol, and it's a trip through history looking at clocks and watches throughout time. Located in the Forestville section of Bristol, the American Clock and Watch Museum is at 100 Maple Street. For an inside look and a bit of its history, I got to talk with Executive Director Patty Philpon. So Patty, it's kind of fitting. We're right in front of a brass clock from Terry and Andrews that was here in Bristol. Anybody that knows anything about Bristol knows that this was a watch town and kind of made its name. Is that why the museum is here? Absolutely. The museum was actually founded by Edward Ingram, who was the president of the Ingram Clock Company. And he came from a long line of clockmakers who were here in Bristol. And when he started to found the museum, he really wanted to make sure that that long legacy of clockmaking and watchmaking that was so tied in with the history of this town would have that legacy go on for a long time so people would always know about it. So they founded the museum here in 1954. And you kind of see it because we have the around town, the I don't know what you call them, stand clocks, but they
street clocks.
Yeah,
yes.
The street clocks. That's right. And it is the
Absolutely.
different sections of town. And I'm going to use a really bad pun. Okay, so it really is a trip through time. It's as much a history museum as just all about clocks.
Absolutely, and that's one of the fabulous things about this museum is because it's about the timepieces. So you have the science and the technology parts of it. The history is such a strong element here because of its founding in Bristol's and Connecticut, in fact, rich history of clock and watchmaking. You've got art and artistry in here with the painting on the clocks and the dials and the engravings. So there's really a lot of different opportunities for people to come and enjoy the museum.
And there's domestic clocks, there's international clocks, so there's a little bit of everything in there. There isn't really a genre as much as the history as things went along.
Yeah, our main focus really is American clock and watchmaking. However, we do have some foreign-made timepieces because it's really interesting to see where America is maybe influencing someone else's, another country's clockmaking or watchmaking, or where America is being influenced by someone else's work. So we do show kind of some of those timepieces.
What I really like is we're in front of a custom-made pocket watch display. I mean, you just don't see those type of things.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of reflected in this building, isn't it? I mean, I think that's what makes it special. It's just not some prefabricated building. There's quite a history to this building, isn't there?
Absolutely. This is an 1801 house with two additions to it. So the museum started in this 1801 house, and it had been owned by the same family for 150 years until the museum purchased it. And they chose this particular building because they really wanted to show where clocks, because we started off being the Bristol Clock Museum and we were all about clocks to start off with. So they wanted a home-like setting because that's really where people showcase their timepieces. And they wanted that warm home-like feeling.
I love this room because it is a lot about Bristol. Tell us about the Ingram banjo clock.
One of the wonderful pieces in our collection that we have in this room is a banjo clock, and it was made by the E. Ingram Company right here in Bristol. And it's got such a fantastic family story associated with it. It's called the Treasure Island clock, and it's because on the tablets there's a pirate map on one piece, and then on the bottom tablet is 4 different pirates, and according to the family stories anyway, the pirates represent the 4 Ingram boys. And
it's still around. It's those kind of stories that you can only kind of see here.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty much, you have 8 galleries, so it's kind of neat when you go into these different rooms. They really have themes, don't they?
They do. We try and give people a little bit of sense of the breadth of our collection in each of the rooms, so you can come in and see some tall case clocks or grandfather clocks. You can see novelty clocks. You can see precision timekeeping. You can see this great watch cabinet that you just talked about, and see all the different watches that are in the collections.
Well, why don't we walk around a little bit, because they've even got time clocks that the factories use.
Absolutely. Come on.
So Patty, we started off talking about history, and this really makes it come to life. We've got a picture of Sessions. What is this photo? Because this really talks about and shows visually about what Bristol was like in the early 1900s?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a picture of gear cutting machines in the Ingram factory in 1914.
It's just amazing, and we're in front of a lathe. We opened the show talking about the wood parts, but I mean, Bristol was all about clocks.
It was, and so much of the industry that we have today and the town has had has really come from the clock industry in particular. In the late 19th century, which was really kind of the heyday of clockmaking here in Bristol and then clockmaking in the country, there was about 300 businesses involved in some aspect of clockmaking just in this area. Everything from dial painting to case making to the brass and the gears and the springs. So much of the industry that we think of that's so associated with Bristol and its history really started because of the clock industry.
Yeah, so when people say, why do we have spring manufacturers here? I mean, this is just, part of our history.
It's because of the clocks.
You don't only do just like a museum, you do a lot of events. I loved last year because it was Felix the Cat Clock. It was here. What have you got coming up in 2018?
We've got some great, exciting things. We have a new exhibition that's going to be coming up in 2018. It's going to run the entire year. It's called Scandals and Scoundrels.
Oh, of course.
Of course it is. And it's going to tell some of those not as often told tales, some of the darker side of the clock industry and the watch industry and the people who were involved in it. So it's going to be a lot of fun different way to showcase the timepieces that we have in our collections.
And when you go on your website, it's got the event calendar, and I had to look at it, the Old Cranks.
The Old
What
Cranks.
is that? That's every month. What is that?
The Old Cranks are a group of gentlemen who come in and volunteer for us, and they have named themselves the Old Cranks. I refuse to say how old they are. It's not my story.
Yeah.
But they come in twice a month, and it's as a public program. You get to come through on Fridays and watch them wind the timepieces. And they wind about 60 to 70 of them every week for us.
And it's, I keep thinking, fall back, spring forward. I can only imagine what kind of job that is.
Yeah, they're definitely here for a lot longer on the daylight savings start and end dates because they have to stop the clocks when we're changing to wait for the hour to go by and then restart them again.
I never thought about it till I was talking to you, that you have people come in and think, well, I need my clock fixed, but that isn't what you do here.
No, it's not. And we are able to offer people a list of people who we know who do clock repair, who do watch repair, but they don't work for the museum. We don't have repair people on staff who come in and do the work.
Now, you don't charge very much to come in here, and I know that you get a lot of the actual products that are donations, but you kind of survive on donations and grants, don't you?
Absolutely. Things like memberships to the museum, our annual fund, grants and foundation support are so vital to all the work that we do here. And of course, the people who come through the door, who shop in our gift shop, come to our programs, are such a great help to us as well.
We look around and the heritage is clocks, but watches really have kind of, we went by the time clocks that were in the factories, but watches really have started to become prevalent in the downstairs.
Absolutely. And watches are something that is going to be a big push for us in 2018. We're going to open up a new cabinet that's currently watch storage, but starting next year it's going to be open storage, and you're going to get to see a larger percentage of our watch collection. It's such an interesting aspect of the industry, and it's something that people are collecting more and more, and we want to be able to show more of it. We actually have about 3,500 watches in our collection, and we only get to show such a tiny portion of it, so we want to change that.
But that's the good thing. I was about thinking while you were talking is even if you've been here a couple of times, you need to come back because you constantly change displays and you get new things in.
Absolutely.
If somebody wanted to donate or come by, what would be the process of I want to donate this to the museum?
People come by, they either can send us pictures of what they have or bring it by if it's something that's portable.
Yeah, right.
If you've got a tall case clock, it's a little hard just to carry it on with you. But if it's portable, bring it by or take some pictures of it and send it to us. We have an artifacts committee that looks at the timepieces to see if they're appropriate for our collections. Since we are an American clock and watch museum, we really focus on our collections on American timepieces. So, things that might be made in Europe aren't so vital to our collections.
You can kind of hear the ticking, which is very, very calming. But I think one of the features of this main floor is the two-story clock. Tell us about that.
So it is actually a tower clock mechanism, and it's one of the great pieces. people love stopping, and we see people just staring at the movement because you really see.
Guilty.
Yeah, absolutely, right? You really see what makes the clock tick, and you can watch the pendulum swing, you can see the weights for it, and you can see the gears and the escapement moving, and you really get a chance to see the insides of how the clock works, and it's really fascinating for everyone.
And the little pieces, you know, that somebody had to do that by hand, we didn't have the technology. It's astounding, the craftsmen that were in Bristol.
Absolutely, and really the whole idea of mass production of the parts for clock parts really was in the early 1800s. It's not that long ago when you really stop and think about it.
No, it isn't. I think one of my favorite rooms is the one that's next door. You go through all of the parts, but then I call it the grandfather clock wing. That's got to be just a showstopper when people come by.
People come especially to hear the grandfather clocks or tall case clocks chime. And we get a lot of people who come in right around the hour because they want to go in and hear the beautiful sounds of those timepieces. And they are such works of art, both the timepieces themselves and the music as well.
It really is. So if people want to know more about the American Clock and Watch Museum, where should they go and how do they contact you?
Absolutely. We are located at 100 Maple Street right here in Bristol. And our website is clockandwatchmuseum.org. People can call us on the phone, which is 860-583-6070. And of course, we've got the Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest pages that you got to have, right?
Yeah, you do. You really do. Well, thank you for taking the time. And if you've been to the Clock Museum, you know how great it is. We're in the middle of the winter. You're only open kind of on the weekends, and then in the spring it kind of opens up.
Yep. In April, we'll be open 7 days a week. But in the wintertime, we're open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, or by happy accident, ring the doorbell, and we're happy to let you in if we're here.
Welcome to Bristol. Nestled in the heart of Connecticut, just 2 hours from Boston, New York, and an hour from the shoreline, Bristol offers a unique New England experience.
City-sized with small-town vibe, you'll fit in no matter your pace.
As a community, we're rich with history, overflowing with passion, and ripe with experiences to enjoy. Beyond the rolling hills of Connecticut, that's where you'll find the magic of Bristol.
With an incredible 700 plus acres of park systems,
Inspiring museums and cultural programs,
and the oldest operating amusement park in North America.
Our arts and entertainment will color you convinced.
And local food and drink establishments to keep you excited, satisfied, and always savoring more.
Community events that leave a lasting memory.
We really do have it all.
plus, we're a community that honors the brave.
A community that offers top-tier sports and recreation.
And world-class accommodations to suit every style.
But what if you wanted to stay even longer?
Well, there's neighborhoods to pair with any personality.
And places for all kinds of producers.
Top-rated school systems.
Ways to make an impact.
And plenty of places to worship.
So whether you're vacationing,
Passing through,
Or staying a little longer.
bring your heart to Bristol. Our heart is always open to your experiences. Bristol, Connecticut.
All heart.
On everyone's New Year's resolution list is to eat better and lose some weight. Easier said than done. Located on Route 6 in Bristol is the Fitness Studio. Owner Justin Michaels is also a certified personal trainer and gave me some tips on how to get started to trim those pounds. So, Justin, you're not only the owner of the Fitness Studio, you're actually a personal trainer that's certified. What goes into that, and what does that actually mean?
So being a certified trainer means that I've actually taken the time and the energy to become certified. That means that I have an education and I've passed a certification exam which qualifies me as a personal trainer. So personal training is actually a very wide scope in terms of what we do, in terms of our practice. So there's a lot of injury rehabilitation involved. Obviously we're here to help people lose weight, strengthen their bodies, but we practice disciplines from many different areas like massage therapy, physical therapy, a lot of strength and conditioning that you might see in athletics. So my certification, it's a base for all things fitness and health related.
We're going to get into some of the exercises and all of that, but I love a saying that you have because it does go hand in hand with eating. What's your little saying to remind people, and then the meaning behind it?
Yeah, so what I found is that you can give people all of the knowledge and education in the world, but if it doesn't hit home and if their heart's not in it, it means nothing to them. So I like to hit them with a few small sentences on their way out the door. So I remind people that you're not a trash can, so don't eat garbage.
That's great.
I think it resonates with people, you know, it really does.
I like the way you approach it because you're talking about before you even start, you need to have a mindset. What does that really mean when you're talking about exercising?
Having all the knowledge and all the workouts and all the resources even online that there are today, it means nothing if you don't have the motivation and the focus and the discipline to get in the gym, be consistent and make some changes happen.
What are some of the things, I mean, we always hear go to a physician, so what are some of the things before you start that plan and actually get into the exercising should people do right now?
Okay, so I have a couple things come to mind when you say that. So first of all, if you aren't in good health, or if you feel like you have some specific, what we call contraindications, signals and certain conditions which say that you should definitely consult your doctor, then you should. With that being said, we can also go down that road and it can become kind of a crutch in a way. So we can say, well, I don't have an appointment with my doctor and I'm not sure I should be exercising, because that's the easy way out. The reality is that movement is a part of being alive, and locomotion and energy is a part of all living things. And I'm a firm believer that in the right moderation and with the right modifications and starting out in the proper place, which is the whole idea of seeing a certified personal trainer, everybody should be working towards a better physique and better health and more mobility, flexibility, strength, conditioning, the whole thing. So don't let needing to see a doctor hold you back.
Let's talk a little bit about, I think there's some fallacies out there about what women should do, what males should do, but a lot of those things really aren't true, are they? You don't, a male doesn't or shouldn't exercise much different than a female.
So I think what might be consistent across the board between males and females is maybe our goal. And what I mean by that is what we want for our body. So me as a male, I may want a physique. I may want my shoulders developed so that my dress shirts fit me nicely and sit on a certain physique. I may want to feel strong so that I can take care of things around my home and in my life, so I can play sports with my son and thrive and set an example. And maybe women want to be a little more lean and they're thinking more about their bathing suit body in the summer. They have their heart set on a certain size pants, getting back to where they were. The reality is that we all should be training in a pretty similar fashion with intensity, modifications, meaning regressions, making an exercise easier, or progressions, making it harder.
You really do kind of dissect the body, I'm sure it's with your training. So you kind of look at muscle groups, don't you? And kind of start to do exercises that are specific for different areas or avoiding different areas if they're not needed, correct?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about training the body, when we talk about strength training, conditioning, we're looking at balance. So a big part of rehabilitation, injury prevention, performance enhancement, a lot of people don't understand. It's really about balance.
To illustrate balance of the four quadrants, which are legs, chest, back, and core, he brought in personal trainer Lauren Jones to show the proper technique. I know a lot of folks didn't push back during the holidays. I'm one of those. So why don't you talk about some of the simple ones that somebody can get started? I'm sure you're going to hit this area a little bit too. Yeah. So I'll let you with Lauren and just kind of tell us what we're doing.
Sure. So to start with that, in terms of addressing this, not pushing away from the table.
You're very kind.
Well, you hit it on the head. You really do want to tackle your nutrition when you're trying to change your core. But underneath that fat, when you take the fat off, you do want to have not only a physique, but some strength and some stability. So what I'm going to have Lauren show for us is one exercise from the 4 different muscle groups.
Okay.
We have legs, push, pull, and core. We talked about that a few minutes ago. So Lauren's going to demonstrate a couple from each. We're going to start with a squat. So everyone wants better legs. Everyone wants a strong trunk. Everyone wants good hips and thighs. So Lauren's going to demonstrate a squat. So go ahead and squat. Lauren's doing a proper squat, so go ahead up and down and give us about 10. You'll notice that the knees aren't moving whatsoever. They're staying in place and she's hinging around them. If I held my hand here, it doesn't move whatsoever. What that means is that this hip this hip joint is primarily responsible for the movement.
What do a lot of people do this wrong? Because I've seen me do it wrong.
Yeah, sure.
Do an example of a wrong one.
Yeah, that's
that people
pretty
can
simple.
see.
So what everyone does is they put their weight in their toes, their knees go past their laces, their back arches over. And what I'll do as a trainer, I'm going to ask you to come a little higher, back up your knees, lift your chest. And now you can see from the head down to the hips is a straight line, from the hips down to the knees is a straight line. And anytime that we can get the upper body and lower body to work in separate pieces, we're engaging our core and we're not getting injured, we're getting something out of it.
And you can tell she's very balanced, so there's no risk of falling
Exactly.
either
Her
way.
weight is right down the middle of her feet and her knees are not at any risk because they're not past her toes. And as important, go ahead and do a few. As important as her having the proper form is her engaging the proper muscle. As I talked about, balance in terms of exercise couldn't be more important. So it's important that she knows what muscle she's working right now. She's primarily working her glutes, hamstrings, and lower back.
Okay.
The only way that we can put together a balanced fitness routine is that we know what we're working, and more than that, we really target a muscle and engage it, okay? So right now she's engaging her glutes and her hamstrings. Therefore, I know as her trainer, she's done her hamstrings, glutes, and lower back. Now when I make the rest of her workout, I can go ahead and target the other areas.
Now, what about speed? Fast, slow? Is it
As
just
a
what
rule-
you feel comfortable or what?
As a rule of thumb, let's go slow. Let's focus on our movement. Let's not get too much momentum and let's not get sloppy. There are certainly many modalities of training which call for speed and power and explosiveness. But if you're watching this at home and you're a beginner, better off to start slow and pay attention to the form. What Lauren just showed us for squat form is spot on. So if you can replicate that at home and you can squeeze your glutes, when you're down here in your squat, you snap your hips forward and you lock out at the top. You lower down nice and slow and you lock out at the top and you know you're using your glutes.
And I'm sure that's got to help your posture because you're more inclined about, I'm slumping and things like that.
Yeah, so everybody, whenever they throw out their lower back or they have tension in the lower back, they don't realize there are some supporting muscles we call synergistic muscles. And those to your back would be your hamstrings and your glutes, your obliques. So these are muscles that support your lower back. And it's not always the lower back that's the weak link. That's what suffers. The weak link often is the hamstrings and glutes, which is why we do squats like we do. So
now that seems simple enough. Give us some other kind of beginners.
Yeah, sure. So I'm excited to show you guys some basics that I think are commonly kind of done wrong and often the cause of not only injury but lack of progress. So Lauren's going to go ahead and show us a plank now. Show me a plank that's too high and teepeed, Lauren. All right, hips up. Yeah, hands are fine. So while she holds this, there's a high plank and a low plank. A lot of people think that a plank is one or the other. It's not. This is a high plank because she's on her hands. If she was on her forearms, it
now,
would
when
be
you
a
say
low
plank, what does that mean exactly?
This is the plank. So
I see.
I'm going to put her in a proper plank in a moment. This is the plank you see all the time in the gym. This is the plank that is relying on a TP type shape where she's propped up on her shoulders. Most people don't have the core strength to do this properly, so they prop themselves up. Go ahead and show us a proper plank, Lauren.
So more evening out. Okay.
Exactly. So we're evening out. Now I want to caution you. A lot of people, when they go and they take a fitness class, and this is the difference in personal training and just taking classes or doing it on your own. A lot of instructors and a lot of people think that you need to have a level hips, which would be down here. Okay. People think that's where you need to be. Once you've gone past this point right here, you actually have a big dip in your back, and that's not very safe or healthy.
It doesn't look comfortable either.
Exactly. What we want to do is engage the abs a little bit. All right. You want to lean forward on our tippy toes, and this is going to really engage this section of the core right there. You see how her shoulders, elbows, and wrists are stacked. That means that we're not causing any injury or damage to the shoulders. And this is, in fact, one of the most productive core exercises that you can do at home. One of the exercises we're going to do is a bent over row, all right? So Lauren's going to grab her dumbbells. She's using 20s because she's very strong and ready for that. If you're watching this at home, you might want to start with 5s, 8s, maybe 10s, okay? So she's going to get into a squat position and she's going to freeze, all right? Right there. We're going to do a bent over row, which is an exercise that is strength oriented and it's focused on the back. The lats, which are here under the arms, and the rhomboids between the shoulder blades, the trapezius up here behind the head. She's going to give me some rows. Go ahead. While she's working, you're going to notice that she's driving with the elbows. Her wrists stay straight. Show us when the wrists cock in and we're overcompensating. Go ahead and turn the wrists in while we're doing it. Okay, there we go. You see how she's rotating those dumbbells?
You see a lot of people doing that wrong, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to keep the wrists straight. We really want to focus on the lats, and we're going to do that by driving with the elbows, okay? I'm going to have her do a push-up right now. And actually, some of the form is very similar to the plank. We're going to make sure that we have a nice tight core. We want our shoulders, elbows, and wrists to be stacked just as before. Go ahead and do some, Lauren. Yep, and you'll notice at the bottom, her elbows, go ahead and do about 10. At the bottom, her elbows go to 90 degrees. You'll see that from her wrist to her elbows, there's not a lot of change going on there. The change really happens in the shoulder girdle, and that's going to allow you to focus on your chest and your triceps.
You know what strikes me, Justin, is you don't need a lot of expensive equipment. You really could do this in your home without having a lot of expense incurred.
Yeah, I would say that you could probably spend under $100, and that could provide you with many, many hours of exercise.
You're taking away all my excuses. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm one of these, so I can talk about this. A lot of people were here in January 2017 saying, I'm going to go lose weight, I'm going to do this kind of thing, and here they are, they did nothing. What can we do to make sure that January of 2019, they're not saying, yeah, I was going to do that and I didn't get around to it? How do we keep our promises?
So here, there's a couple things that I want to say. First of all, I don't think that we should set goals fighting off our failures, okay? I think that is an avoidance technique that is proven to not work, as you just said time and time again. In other words, we failed in 2017 to lose the weight we wanted to lose. So this year our motivation is to not fail again. Well, we've already practiced failing, and we've already made a habit
and we're
of
good
failing.
at it.
And we're good at it, exactly. I want us to wake up in the morning and decide what we want from our day. I want us to go out there and decide what makes sense for us and what would bring us happiness. I have a philosophy, and we share a philosophy here at the fitness studio. Our body is the one thing we'll always have. You can lose your house, your car, your friends, your money, your job, the clothes on your back, but you'll always have your body. And when you don't have your body, it'll be a non-issue.
You're done. Yeah.
So the reality is this: the body is the one thing you'll always have.
Great advice. Lauren, thank you so much. Now, Justin, the fitness studio, if they want to know more information, how do they get a hold of you and where would they go?
Okay, so the fitness studio is here in Bristol, 912 Terryville Avenue, Route 6. We are just before the Terryville line, just before the train tracks up here. Our phone number here is 860-906-2522. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/thefitnessstudioct.
We got to have a great 2018. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, even though we're in a place where time stands still, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us for our first edition of Uniquely Bristol for 2018. We do this show for you, and we'd kind of like to know what you think. Send us your comments at marketing@bristolct.gov. If you want to know more about Bristol, go to our website, www.bristolallheart.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It's going to be a great 2018, so join us next month, and Happy New Year.